would give us different numbers on which states, which countries could be described as emerging. One of the most popular one is index, it's so-called EMIS, Index of Emerging Markets, which classifies over 40, I think 44 economies now, as emerging. These countries may be, let's see the list. It's the Euromoney investor company. So it's internet investor services company, which classifies the following markets from all over the world as emerging. Of course, out of these over 40 countries and regions, not all of would be potential superpowers, economic powers, but they are all developing fast. And again here, there are already some contradictions to what I said before. We see here, apart from mainland China, Hong Kong and Taiwan, I've mentioned them as emerging in 1980s, but using the criteria for economic development, they're not developing anymore. They're advanced economies. We see Korea here, and South Korea, again, is a country that can be classified as one of the most advanced economies of the time. So it's not an emerging market. It's already established advanced market. Same would, to some extent, apply to Poland, which, with high income and very high level of human development, and very good indicators of development of capital market, could be classified as developed, as advanced economy, and participation in the European Union and OECD only adds to it. So here we have a mixture of both economy, of both developing and developed countries. If they are developed, we can say that these are like late developed countries or late industrialized countries. And even if we browse through the list, we see that there are a bit too many of them. And of course, most of them would never be described as economic powers. They might be influential economies, advanced economies, but not the most influential ones. If we use other classification, very similar to the MES is the classification made by the economists, but economists differs in that line that emerging markets are defined together with developing countries, so the economists tries to make a distinction between developed and developing countries among the emerging ones. But the rating agency Standard & Poor's, which is very influential among investors, by the way, the Economist distinguishes today 44 economies as emerging. Standard & Poor's rating agency distinguishes only 19 economies using such criteria like GNI per capita, growth rates, development of financial markets, and trade volume. Altogether, when I was doing research for this presentation, and during my previous research related to the BRICS countries, I found over 20 different classifications for developing countries, and actually there were only few economies that were listed in all rankings. And actually, even not China or India appeared everywhere, but one of the countries that appeared everywhere, as far as I remember, was Turkey, in every single classification, because some economists, some politologists, political scientists would say that China and India are actually a separate category. And here I would like to move to this separate category, moving to our major topic about the economic powers. When we have emerging market, which is classifying by fastest growth, then economic powers would be the economies that are most influential, most that have the greatest contribution to the world GDP. And if we are thinking of economic powers, most of us almost automatically skips to the term BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, maybe. That's why I put this as in brackets, because there's a problem with this group. We would all agree that in terms of GDP, in terms of growth rate, in terms of rate of modernization and investment, the four economies like Brasilia, Russia, India, and China are the fastest growing, fastest developing in the world. This is something that doesn't make much, doesn't cause much contradiction, but there's one point. Are there any actual linkages between these economies? And if we want to develop the term BRIC, we have to think of it in both economic and political dimension. The abbreviation BRIC was first used by Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs in the in a report published in 2001 to describe the countries experiencing rapid economic development, countries that altogether, four of them, by the year 2050, would constitute the major economic power in the world, exceeding the current superpower, which was at the time US plus the European Union countries. But it was stated very clearly: these countries have no common interest in global economy. These countries have no common characteristics. We have Russia as a commodities exporting country, Brazil based on export promotion and import substitution, having huge advances in social policy like Bolsa Familia program, and great industry, Embraer airplanes being an example, but still no huge poverty, huge inequality, a very high Gini coefficient. We have India, outsourcing services center. We have China, export-driven economy, and these economies do not cooperate. We mentioned during 1 hour debates here that China and India have very poor economic relations, considering the geographical proximity and the region where they are placed, but it's true, these countries have no common characteristics. They have other trade partners than themselves. So actually, it was an artificial group of countries created in an artificial manner from the very beginning. But this term was, let's to say, catchy. So it started to be very popular within economic and also political press. And by the end of the first decade of 21st century, everyone accompanied BRIC as the four new emerging powers. And that was why, at some point, the same countries started turning this term into political capital. By the year 2009, there was a first political summit, the first meeting of high authorities of the four countries, which turned the artificial grouping into a political movement, maybe political organization in the future. These summits have taken place on a regular basis since. Most of you must realize what happened in Delhi this year. There was another BRICS summit, and actually now it was no more BRICS summit, it was BRICS, because the four economies, the presidents of four countries invited and admitted Republic of South Africa to the group. And what was the, and this was, as this cooperation doesn't translate much to economic cooperation, hopefully yet. There are some common goals like international monetary regime, maybe something Dr. Bogusław was talking about, like reforming the UN Charter and especially UN Security Council. This is something, apart from China and Russia, of course, these countries share in common. But again, there are no economic linkages between the countries. What's more, there are more and more economic tensions between the countries, especially between Brazil and China, or China and South Africa. And as for the Goldman Sachs, the creators of the original term, they still say that these are just BRIC countries, only 4 of them, and moreover, they treat the political movement as quite a poor joke. They do not even refer to it in their official press. There are the Goldman Sachs start to introduce new classification. Next 11, widening the group by adding, among others, South Korea or Turkey. But if we want to be consequent, the 4 economies, or even the South Africa, are still developing countries, and South Korea is already advanced economy, or even one of the most advanced economies in the world. Sometimes you might come across a term BRICS plus Eastern Europe plus Turkey. Makes sense if we treat Eastern Europe as a whole. Maybe BRIC plus South Korea, and actually there are on the political in the political dimension, there are some talks about South Korea joining the political association. Others would say that BRICS are already past their rapid industrialization and rapid economic growth. Judging at relative slowdown of Indian or Chinese economy, they would say that the future belongs to other economies, like Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and again South Africa. There are some economies also within the Goldman Sachs group that would differentiate between emerging markets in general and big emerging markets, among which are the future economic powers. And among big emerging markets, they include, for example, Poland, South Africa, Turkey, but also China, India, Russia. I've already mentioned newly industrialized economies, and what's strange, this term is still being used and still in relation to the 4 Asian tigers. And there is also a term potential superpowers, potential economic superpowers, sometimes being used. And there's a final question I want to ask during this presentation, coming to an end. If we have superpowers, let's say that these are the most influential economies in the world, for example, the BRIC countries are emerging economic powers, or have they already emerged? Can we talk about China or India as emerging market, or is it the huge market that has already established its position within the world economy? If we differentiate between emerging economic powers and economic powers per se, who would be the economic power or the old economic power? Is it still the US? Okay, even with after the financial crisis, it still definitely is. Is it Germany? Maybe. France, United Kingdom, or maybe we should treat the European Union as an economic superpower, European Union as a whole. But then, European Union encompasses several economies that I classified as emerging markets before. For example, Poland, Czech Republic, or even Slovakia. Next would be China superpower, maybe, and Russia. Even in the group of BRICS, Russia is the economy that's least that